Good evening, my friends. Good evening to you. How are you? My name is Tony Pompa. I am the Dean and Rector of the Cathedral Church of the Nativity here in Bethlehem of Pennsylvania. And this is the fourth and final video in our exploration of Celtic hagiography and a conversation about the Celtic saints. This offering is brought to you in a lovely partnership with the Celtic Cultural Alliance here in the Lehigh Valley in the city of Bethlehem. And we adore the good work that nonprofit does, bringing present to us all of the goodness of the cultural and artistry and music and spirit of Celtic things and Celtic peoples here in the Valley. So please support the Celtic Cultural Alliance. And I have been delighted to spend this time with you the last 4 weeks. And we have been learning a bit about hagiography. And we have been exploring and getting to know some of the Celtic saints. I'll remind you quickly that when we speak of Celtic things, we speak of peoples cultural, who we at least historically locate in regions we know today as Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Cornwall, and Brittany, which is a section of modern-day France and even a little bit of modern-day Spain. I'll remind you that hagiography is not to be confused with biography. It often is if you Google things. Hagiographies are not intended to be biographies, but rather they are hagi, from the Greek holy, and ography writings. They are holy writings about people who lived and moved and had their being, and who were and are considered holy. The hagiographies were written many years after the lives of the saints, and they were written not so much for historical accuracy, but rather to elevate a saint to be able to be revered and respected, and therefore tied to whatever purpose and context in the time of the writing were being pursued. For example, the establishment of a holy shrine, or the investment in the establishment of a community of faith, or even building a church, in a way to attract not only people's spiritual desires, but also their investment of their time and their money. Hagiographies will often in their writings have a relationship with the supernatural and the natural order, and this is a way of making apology, that is, argument for a Christian worldview in the midst of a pagan worldview. So, for example, many of the saints have stories where there is supernatural powers, and they will often be tied to maybe miracles that perhaps Jesus had performed, or themes from the Christian story, virtue, forgiveness, purity, healing, for example, and even a relationship with the natural order of things, with the environment. So that's a quick review of hagiography. And let's just focus this day. I have 3 saints I wish to talk about tonight, making our exploration around the world a bit, of the Celtic world. And today we will discuss some maybe lesser known saints, certainly in our world, and then we'll speak about one particular who's not who's maybe more well known. So we will speak about Saint Endelion or Endeliante, who was a saint of the 6th century, female, who lived and moved and had her being in Cornwall, modern day England, Cornwall. So Saint Endelion or Endelianta, her Latin name. We'll speak about Saint Broch, that's Brioc, Broch, who lived and witnessed in Brittany, modern day France. And we'll speak of St. Columcille, also known as St. Columba. Columcille, of course, the patron saint of Scotland, who founded the monastic community and pilgrimage site that many still seek today of Iona, just off the coast of Scotland. So, remember, in our hagiographies, listen for the themes. Don't expect a lot of history, just a bit. And we'll just do little snapshots tonight, as we make our way toward the end of our time together. So, Saint Endelion or Endelienta is noted in the Roman Church with a feast day on April 29th. She lived in the 6th century in a small village on the north coast of Cornwall. Saint Endeliante, who is here, Saint Endelion, behind us. She was one of numerous children, and she lived an austere life, and she was sustained, as the hagiography goes, she was sustained by the milk of one cow. The hagiographical story goes for Endelianta that this one cow, who was her nourishment, was killed by a local lord. As you often hear that power play in hagiography, the local worldly power exerting itself on one of the saints. In this case, a local lord killed her cow because it had traversed on his land. Her godfather, who was a well-known and great man, had the Lord killed because of his actions. But Endelion, and now you'll hear the Christian theme, Endelion miraculously brought the Lord back to life. When she perceived that the day of her own death was nearing, she asked her friend that her body should be laid on a hillside and be buried where certain young stots, bullocks, and calves should of their own accord draw her. The beast drew the bier on the top of a hill, where there was a piece of waste, miry ground. So she wanted to be buried humbly. Again, you can hear the themes. We hear the themes of forgiveness, of new life, of healing, and we hear now the theme of humility. She wanted to be buried on humble ground, attended to by the beasts of the fields. She was indeed buried there, and a church was raised over her grave and dedicated to her memory. That church exists. It is standing, and indeed it is said that her remains are underneath that church. You can visit it in the little town in Cornwall that bears the name of the saint Endelion. There is a prayer that is associated with Endelion or Endelianta, and I share it with you now. O holy Endelianta, when thy cow, thine only source of sustenance, was cruelly killed, thy heart was filled with forgiveness for the slaughter. Pray to Christ our God, that we may ever forgive our enemies and ourselves find mercy. Lovely, lovely short piece of Endelianta or Endelion, 6th century saint, whose place was in Cornwall. Now, Saint Brioche, who I do not have an icon of Saint Brioche. Behind me is Endelion, and Columcille is right behind me as well. But Saint Brioche of Brittany lived in the late 5th and early 6th centuries. It is said that he was born in Wales, that he was studied and tutored in Wales, and that he is known as the traveler. Saint Brioche, it is said, is one of the Peregrini, the great saints of the Peregrinatio, who I remind you are those great saints who went on holy pilgrimage. They went on walkabout. They went off to unknown places. They knew not where. They only knew that they were seeking to be met by God, to be returned to their homeland, which of course was not a physical place, but a spiritual place. And Saint Brioche of Brittany was one of those. It is said that he was born in Wales around the year 510. And his feast day is October the 18th, which is just soon. He is the founder of the monastery in Draguer. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. In Brittany, part of modern-day France, which grew into the town and see called Saint Brioche. He probably was born in Cardiganshire in Wales. And according to legend, which means this is the hagiographical piece, his father, named Serpus, and his mother, Elrude, both of whom it is said to have converted to Christianity following their son's ordination. That's the way it happens for all of us. No, that's not true. Let's see. Brioche was reputed to have built a famous church in Grand Lawn, where he gathered a number of disciples. That is just true of the way the monastic order and world worked, that indeed you began a monastic existence, and people who were attracted to that lifestyle, we're using the word disciples, but became part of the community there. Brioche is said to have converted there a wealthy nobleman named Conan, who provided the funds to build the monastery. Then Brioche is said to have returned to Britain and, with the help of his relative, built the Church of St. Stephen. Brioche is said to be a bishop in an inscription in marble that is built in his shrine in the year 1210. But more than likely, what that means is that, particularly in the Celtic world, it means that he was the overseer of the monastic community, which is, by definition, bishop. In art, Saint Brioche is a bishop, and he is depicted with a fiery pillar above him. He was said to be a person of great charity, and therefore is considered to be the patron saint of purse makers. The prayer associated with him, O Holy Brioche, enlightener of the lands of Wales and Brittany, With miracles thou didst preach Christ in thy life, and in death thy fragrance proclaimed thy glory. Pray to Christ our God, that our souls may be saved. Saint Brioch of Brittany. And now we go to Scotland. And we go to be in the presence of Saint Columcille, or Saint Columba. Those of you who live locally here in Bethlehem will perhaps be familiar with the Megalith Park that is located in Bangor. That you will know when you enter there that there is a small chapel in the spirit of St. Columcille. It's very ancient, it's very rustic, and it is in the image of similar habitation in Iona. The park is called Columcille, by the way. And there are also large rock formations there. So it is visited by all seekers of all depth and holy things. You should visit it if you've not been there. It's really quite spectacular. So Columcille, or St. Columba as we know, was one of the greatest names in the early history of the church in the British Isles. Columcille has two hagiographies that were written, both of them written many years. The first written in the 12th century, and then a second hagiography was written in the 16th century. And they depict St. Columcille. They tie him to the monastic establishment in Iona. And it is through the hagiography that Iona becomes a place of pilgrimage. So some of the things we pick out of the hagiography. Columcille, the saint, was born in Ireland in the year 521. He is one of the great Peregrini, one of those great Peregrini who hollowed out a boat, got in it, and set off for wherever God would take him. And it is said that he studied under St. Finian, who, St. Finian was kind of first generation Celtic monastic leader. St. Columba did not travel alone. It is said that he traveled with St. Comgall and Karen and St. Kenich. His original name, it is said, was Crimthan, an early exchange for the cognomen of Columcille. Columcille, the name, means dove of the church. In 546, when he is said to have been about 25 years old, he founded Derry, and some years afterward, Durrow, the greatest of the Irish monastic communities. Religious communities at Kells, Swords, Raphoe, Tory Island, and Drumcliff claimed him also as their founder. Probably not their founder, but probably through hagiographical accounts claimed so that they would have legitimacy. One of the hagiographical accounts points out that St. Finian owned a special copy of the Psalms, which Columcille, in about the year 560, secretly copied, fearing refusal if he had asked permission. Finian demanded the copy as his own, and Columcille, declining to surrender it, The matter was referred to the local king, who made this decision: to every cow belongeth her calf. This is an unjust decision, said Columcille. Matters were aggravated that Columcille was falsely accused of horrible things, and in the accusal, Columcille fled. In his miraculous escape from this, while in the wilds between Tara and his native Tyrconnell, he is said to have composed the beautiful hymn that commences in this translation: Alone am I upon the mountain, O King of heaven, prosper my way. Columcille's kinsmen took up the quarrel, and it is said there was a battle over it. Repentant in being cause to such bloodshed, St. Columcille sought the counsel of a local saint, who enjoined upon him as penance that he should become in exile. That is the hagiographical account of Columcille's launching in peregrinatio. So you hear the themes of repentance and the seeking of forgiveness. Whatever the motivation was for Columcille to go on peregrini, he landed in Iona and there established what is still today a pilgrim site for many pilgrims who make their way to Iona for spiritual reflection and for spiritual renewal. One of the things that Columcille was quite well known for was his asceticism, his prayer life, and that is why to this very day many find in Columcille the great path and pattern to reflection and to spiritual awareness. So, my friends, we leave it there. We leave ourselves in Scotland and off the coast in the beautiful part we know as Iona with St. Columcille. I really do commend to you, if you live locally, Columcille, the megalith park, which is just located in Bangor, near Kirkridge Retreat Center. It is not affiliated with the retreat center, but its property does adjoin. There is wonderful opportunity to be there and to reflect and pray, to connect with nature, to walk a labyrinth, and to consider our place in this world. Friends, it has been my joy to be with you in conversations and to get to know a bit more about hagiography and the Celtic world and Celtic spirituality. I wish all of you well. And again, support the Celtic Cultural Alliance. And here at the Cathedral Church of the Nativity, we're always happy to see you virtually, and up to 25 of you who register for our Celtic Spirituality Nights, which take place on the last Saturday of every month. So come and join us either on Facebook Live or on live stream, or sign up and come in person. We're happy to have you. If you have any questions or reflections you wish to share, feel free to email me at tpompa, that's T as in Tony, Pompa, Pompa, at nativitycathedral.org. I am happy to answer or enter into dialogue. Peace to you, my friends. Stay calm out there. Wear a mask, wash your hands, keep your distance, be kind to one another, be respectful to one another, and just help each other out. Blessings.